Today we've got a review for you of the awesome new BLUETTI AC70 here. This is a portable solar generator, or just basically a big smart battery that's going to be able to power all your gadgets and your gizmos and even some bigger appliances if you're in a pinch. So I thought I'd just kind of go over and show you some of the stuff and some of the specs and some of the real world situations of this thing, because I love them. I carry them with me all the time and they've saved me on definitely more than one occasion. Now this is an upgraded version of the EB70S over here. This thing is BLUETTI's model from a few years ago, and I'll do a bit of a comparison later in the video, but this is the upgraded version. There are a few things missing from it based on my personal preferences, but overall this is a huge upgrade, and I think just a fantastic thing for anybody to have, whether you're a prepper, whether you're a content creator, whether you just want to be able to power all your stuff in a pinch. And yes, I mean cameras, I mean drones, I mean batteries, construction gear, and even appliances like coffee machines, freezers, all that kind of stuff. So I did some real world tests and I thought I'd show them to you so you can have an idea about what this thing is and isn't going to be able to charge. But given the size, coming in at only 22.5 pounds and just about a foot long, this thing packs a heck of a punch. Now it's got a 768 watt-hour battery, which means you're going to get a lot of charges out of your smaller stuff, and it's also going to be able to keep things like your fridge or maybe a small freezer or something going for a few days if you do happen to have a grid down situation. Now it's going to be able to put out 1,000 watts of power, but in powerlifting mode up to 2,000 watts. So very impressive and a big upgrade over its predecessor over here. Now the cool thing about these things is that they have multiple ways for you to charge them. If you don't have a power outlet in your wall, or if the power's out and you need to charge this thing, you can rely on maybe your car or solar, which is a great option to have. So if you do have a solar panel, throw this thing in, and up to 500 watts, it's going to take about 2 hours to charge. If you do have power and you want to charge this thing quickly, it's going to charge very, very quickly plugged into AC power. It can charge 0 to 80% in about 45 minutes and a full charge in about an hour and a half. And again, for solar, it can take in up to 500 watts and charge this thing fully in about 2 hours. A few other things to note: this thing does have a 5-year warranty, which is great to see. I love to know when I invest in something that it's not going to break on me. So having that peace of mind is really nice. It also has a nice, easy to use app, and controlling it and monitoring is a piece of cake. You basically download the app, you can find your power station in just about a second, connect, and you're done. It's very intuitive, very easy, straightforward. Anybody can use it. Another really cool feature of this is its pass-through charging. So if you're using solar to charge it, you can also use or discharge this thing by charging your gear or powering devices that you may need to use. This power station is also rated for a life cycle of about 3,000 recharges. So again, although it does have a 5-year warranty, this thing is going to be around for a long time. Now, before we look at some real world scenarios here showing you what this thing can power, I thought I'd talk a bit about the actual physical display here at the front, as well as what it has to hook up to. One of my favorite things about this unit is the upgraded LCD screen. This is going to show you everything that you need to know, and it's really nice and intuitive. It's got AC and DC in and out. Over here you can see the draw that we're using right now for the light that we're using to film this video, as well as we're charging a camera and a battery as well. So you can see that in real time, and down beneath you can see exactly how long this battery is going to last with the current output. So you can actually plan accordingly. If you are worried about getting low and you need this thing to last a little bit longer, well, you can monitor your wattage and adjust accordingly. And a quick look at our inputs here. On the right, we've got 2 of our 1000 watt AC inputs. In the middle, we've got 2 100 watt USB Type-Cs and 2 USB Type-As rated at 12 watts. On the left, we've got a 10 amp 12 volt socket. And on the very top, we've got our solar input up to, again, 500 watts. And here's the overall input and output specs that you'd find on the website. And here's a quick look at the unit from all sides, just showing you what you can expect in terms of the size and the weight in your hand. And for me, overall, the build is very good. The materials feel very solid. It feels like a very well put together and thought out product. Definitely no complaints in terms of the build for me. Next, let's have a look at some tests in the real world. Now, of course, this thing can charge things like batteries, like cameras and drones and little things like that. That's a no-brainer. But what about bigger appliances or things that you might find that you need when the power goes out, or maybe you're doing some off-grid camping or in your RV? Let's check some of those things out. First, I tested a grinder. Now, with a lot of power tools, they have a big surge of voltage that's needed right at startup, and I'm happy to say that this unit handles it very well with no issues when it came to this grinder. Next up, at around 1000 watts, this demanding shop vac had no issues being powered by the AC70. This could be very useful in a flooding situation when you don't have any power. Next up, of course, I had to test it on my small garage freezer. This is important because if the power goes out, there's a lot of meat in there and you sure don't want it to spoil. Usually you have a few days, but if this thing can buy you an extra few days if something were to happen, well, that's worth its weight in gold. For freezers, it's going to require the most power when the compressor fires on to keep it at temperature, but most of the time, it's not going to use very much at all. I also tried it on a bigger freezer as well, and it worked no problem. It actually drew less wattage somehow, but I am happy to note that it's going to work for both if I need it to. Next up, this is an important one for me. Nothing gets done around here without coffee. And yes, this thing is going to be able to power a big grinder and coffee machine in one. I was surprised actually that it was able to sustain over 1000 watts, actually well over 1000 watts while it did its job, but I'm happy to say that it did it no problem. And it looks like it used about 4% of the battery doing this intensive job. It's worth noting that the EB70 did fail at this task. Next up, we've got a bigger space heater here, one of the most demanding appliances that we have, and I'm happy to say that this thing does pretty darn well. As you can see here, on a low setting of about 500 watts, it does okay. Even at 1000 watts or just over, it does sustain it just fine, but as soon as you hit it up to that 1500 mark, which is pretty standard for most on high, it does shut down quite quickly. There's not a ton of power stations in the 1000 watt range, and this might just be the sweet spot for most people. Let me know down in the comments what you use or would use a power station like this for primarily. As promised, I wanted to give you a little comparison of a few of the features between this new guy and the old EB70S here. A few things to note. As you can see, this one is actually a little bit bigger over here, and mainly because it doesn't have this big brick here, this charging brick that you have to carry around with the old guy to allow it to charge nice and quickly. It's built into this guy, and I really appreciate that feature. So another thing, of course, is the wattage between the two. This one is not able to handle the same appliances as this one. This one can make you coffee. This one can power a big freezer, no problem. This thing does struggle and can struggle a little bit. Also, a few things to note. This thing does have a kind of extending handle in the middle where the new guy actually has just one of these handles at the back here, which does kind of feel funny for balance. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I wish it was in the middle a little bit, but no deal breaker, just something to note. But one feature that I am disappointed to see that was not in this guy that is in the older one is right here on top, and that's the wireless charging. I don't know why they took that out, and I really like that about this one. That was probably my favorite feature, because if you're in a grid down situation, if you're in an emergency, well, you might not have a cable, a cord, and if it breaks and you need to charge your phone or something, well, you just throw that on there and it wirelessly charges. So I'd like to see that in the future, BLUETTI, if you're listening. Another thing to note is that there is a little light over here, an emergency light. It's a little LED, you know, not totally needed, but I've actually used it a few times and it's not on this one. So interesting to see, you know, things come and things go. Overall, I'd definitely rather have this power station still, but this thing is still, here in this day and age, a great contender. And a few final important differences between the two. The AC70 has a significantly faster charging time compared to the old EB70S at 3 to 4 hours for a full charge, where the AC70 can charge 80% in only 45 minutes and about an hour and a half for a full charge. Significantly different. And again, it's also worth noting that the solar capabilities have been improved with up to 500 watt input on the AC70 compared to only 200 with the EB70S. In terms of warranty, you get 2 years with the old version, and with the newer version, you get an awesome 5 years as we discussed.
And finally, we'll have a look at the inputs on the two that are different. The AC70 has less of them. It has two upgraded 1000 watt AC inputs, where the EB70S has 4. Now on the left here, we can see that we still have two 100 watt USB Type-Cs, and we do have two USB Type-As, but we are going to be missing these older style ports that some people use to power things like telescopes. Now, of course, those aren't used very often, so I think for the most part, people aren't going to have an issue with this. And if need be, there are probably some adapters that you could pick up. They've both got your 12 volt ports in there, and BLUETTI has upgraded the solar port. You got the old style here on the EB70S, and you have the upgraded style here on the AC70.
If you're on the fence between these two, I do have a full in-depth review on this guy as well. But yeah, I think this is a great upgrade, and would I recommend it to you? Absolutely. I think it's a great product, and I love the direction that BLUETTI is going. Thanks again to BLUETTI for sending me this guy for review, but they did not pay me, and everything in this review is my own personal opinion. So if you did like this video, guys, if it helped you out, hit that like and subscribe button, join the community. And if you wanted to pick either of these up, I'll drop affiliate links down there if you want to buy one. And I'll try and throw a promo code or find one on sale for you so you can save a few bucks. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. And like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and of course, get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.